Welcome back, everyone, to the Ginge Treasure. I hope you all had a beautiful, beautiful week. It's been about 3 days since my last video. My intention is to get at least one video done every day. It's just been a busy week with my other job. The season is picking up working outdoors, and when I get home, I'm just exhausted and don't have the energy to create a video. But today is my day off, so let's get into it. I'm excited to finally be getting back into the wire wrapping videos. Today we're gonna do another how to wire wrap an awkward shaped pendant. I picked up this nice little moonstone. It's got a nice color to it. That's just my dog probably barking at a squirrel. All right, Cody. Okay. Good boy. And so for this guy, it has kind of a cubish shape. However, you can see it does still kind of have an awkward shape to it as well. This is just the one that spoke to me when just looking through the bag right there. And if you've seen my other videos, you're probably a little familiar by now. I like to start with the 20 gauge wire. This one is left over from another job, and it looks to be, it's probably gonna be a little bit more than I need. Might even be about double what I need, but that'll do. And then for the other gauge of wire, I like to use the 24 gauge. So I'm just gonna peel off the spool about an arm's length. I really probably, based on the size of this stone, I probably won't need a full arm's length, but you never know. Better safe than sorry. And with that, let's get into it. So the first thing we're gonna do is take that 24 gauge wire, kiss the 2 points, slide the fingers all the way down to the middle to find that middle point. And then I've been kind of just eyeballing, this is definitely too much, so I'm gonna clip that off maybe with the excess so I can make some earrings or something, a smaller pendant perhaps. It's still gonna be more than I need. Usually I could probably get away with about a hand's length. It's just over a hand's length there. And what I'll do is kiss the 2 points and just kind of eyeball about there is the middle. So that's where I will start. And to begin, what we do is we take that middle loop of the 24 gauge wire. I missed. And just meet the 2 middles, right? And then from there, I'm pinching down with my thumb and index finger on one hand, and then gently guiding with the other hand the wraps, the bands, and just taking my time, going slow, making sure not to make any mistakes and that the wraps are nice and tight. And I'll probably do, for something about this size, maybe 10 wraps on one side, and then I'll flip this around and then do it on the other side. That was, I don't know, was that 10? I'll do one more, just for good measure. Might even end up doing more than 10. It's not so important, the numbers. What is important, actually, let me stop right there and say, so right there, you see how it kind of naturally wants to create a gap right there. I just massage it back and forth to get it tucked in nice and tight, and then I continue. And as I was saying, the numbers are not so important. what is important is that you have a good eye estimate for the length of one side of the stone that you'll be wrapping. And in a second, I will show you what I mean. So from here, let's take a look. That's a good length. And then from here, we're just gonna pick out which side, how it will face. This maybe will be the top. Could be a cube. Maybe I'll do a diamond shape. I think I'll do a diamond. Generally, the diamonds are a little bit easier. And kind of like this is how it speaks to me. So from there, gonna kind of pinch down in the middle to shape it just like how the stone is. And then here I'm gonna create the long horns by bending outwards. And the reason I do that is so that when I'm wrapping around, these are not getting caught in the way. And then from here, the next step, I'll take my index finger once again and pinch it down in the middle between my thumb and index finger. Actually, I'll slide over a little bit. So as you can see, my thumb is gonna pinch down right about here to create what I call the space gap. And the space gap is the purpose of it is to create enough space for the width of the bulge of the stone so that this doesn't end up just being flat and the stone doesn't fit when I'm putting it all together. So with that space gap in mind, then I just swing the 24 gauge wire across and then continue to wrap. And I'll do, say, 5, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'll flip it around and do the same thing to the other side. Now, with that space gap, it's gonna be more important to overestimate how much gappage you need rather than underestimating, because when you underestimate, then you don't have enough room to fit the stone in. And if you have too much, well, that's not gonna be the end of the world. So as you can see, that's probably gonna be way too much for me, way too much that I'll need, but that's fine because if you've seen my tutorial videos in the past, you know that I use that excess space to create my own style. So here you can see the stone is kind of placed in, and wow, that's actually a lot of excess, but no matter. So from here, I'm gonna take my middle finger and tuck it on the top, on the back, and then my thumb on the front, and then my index finger pushing down on the top of the stone. And then from there, the 24 gauge wire crosses over once again and then continues to wrap. I actually feel like this is perhaps not going to be enough 24 gauge wire, but we'll find out. I'm all for those makeshift creative solutions. And then we flip it around, and then we'll do the same thing. Get your fingers placed on your hand. Yeah, this will definitely not be enough. What was I thinking? No matter. So I do about 5 more on each side. And then I'll get ready to cross. What did I do here? Oh, I see. So I actually grabbed the wrong end wire for the 24 gauge. So I crossed it over, and then I continued to use on this side instead. So I did that twice. I was not paying attention. So I'm gonna unwrap this. That makes sense for why I was running out of wire so fast. Let's see. I did it. Did I do it 3 times? Wow. Yeah, no wonder I was running out of wire so fast. So I'm gonna uncoil all of that. Let me show you a little technique. I did this in my last video for how to fix the mistake of this kind of twisted or janky wire, I have a flat part on my pliers, and I just kind of pinch down and delicately massage and kind of pull outwards at the same time to massage out the kinks. Just like kind of, I mean, it's not really the same technique, but I think of it kind of the same as like ironing out wrinkles in a shirt. I mean, that's completely different, but at the same time, you can use your imagination and see how it's kind of similar. And it's important to kind of follow along with the wire instead of just going straight across, clamp, clamp, clamp. You want to twist and bend with the wire how the grooves twist. And that's kind of, I think of it kind of like gardening with the vines. If you work with anything like ivy where it's real viney, you don't want to just be jerking and twisting. You want to go kind of along with the same way that the plant and the vines are growing. Otherwise, it's going to bother the plant, and temperamental plants sometimes won't even survive that just because you kind of pulled, and it's like twisting the arm the wrong way. It can hurt the plant. All right, so now that we've kind of massaged that out, let's get back to it. So what I did, I was accidentally using this wire when in fact I should have been using this wire if I was more careful. So now that I've gone back, I think what I'll do is create a smaller space gap since I won't really need so much space. And just like before, do about 5 bands and then lower those out and kind of eyeball see. It's a little bit of a smaller gap, kind of wide on one side and not so much on the other. That's all right. Can still do our stylish finish for the end there. And then from here, just like before, middle finger in the back, thumb in the front, and index finger on the top, pushing downwards. They're all pushing into the stone, just as kind of a placeholder, keeping it steady in place. And if you're beginning to wire wrap, it might feel a little funny. I know it did at first for me, but now that it's kind of a muscle memory thing, I just get more skilled at handling the stone over time. It's just like with anything, you know, practice makes perfect. All right, so then we're gonna take the bottom wire. Be careful not to mix the wires. You don't wanna go for the top, always the bottom. From the bottom wire, we'll swing it across. And as we do that, we're also kind of pushing in on where it's already been wrapped to kind of finalize the shaping. So it goes along naturally with the shape of the stone. And we do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that looks good. All right, and then from there, we don't need to flip over because we can just take the wire from the other side and swing it around once more. And by now, it's about halfway up the stone, and you should be feeling that the stone is getting more securely wrapped in there. We do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more wraps. Again, the numbers are not so important. I'm just using 5, and I did actually 6 there. Just based on the size of the stone. It's going to be different. Every stone is unique. For this one, 5 or 6 seems to be working, so I'll straighten out those long horns just to give me room to work with, right? And then do the bands, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I do like to be symmetrical, so if it was 5, 5, and 5, and then 6, then I'll do 5, 5, 5, and then 6 on the other side. Even though the stone itself is not so symmetrical, I mean, that's fine. Sometimes if it's a little bit longer on one side, you might even want to do like 7, 8, 9, 10 on the one side, just to keep it kind of parallel with each other, because that's really what's more important. It looks more aesthetically pleasing. And then I'll back that wire around the back so it's kind of out of my way, give me space to work. And then once more, I'll swing across and then do the bands. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We'll just keep it consistent with 5 today, with the exception of the 1, 6. And then once again, flipping on the other side. 1, 2, 3. And you'll notice as I do this, the wraps, they kind of want to go up, creating this gap right here. Just go ahead and do your best to push it back down, and that way it keeps the wrap tight. Because if you allow that space gap, then it's gonna, once it's complete, it's gonna have room to like slide around, and it will actually end up loosening the stone and make it a little less secure. Let's see here, that might have been 6, but that's all right. We won't tell anybody, right? It'll still look good. Nobody will know. They're gonna know. Just kidding. All right, so we do 1, 2, 3. And as you'll notice, just as I was saying before, it's trying to slide up. So I'm just gonna take my fingernail, kind of tuck it in that wedge there, and use that to slide it down as best I can. And as you can see, as I do that, it tightens these guys together. As I bend them outwards, it brings them back inwards, which is important for keeping it locked and secure. All right, so flipping to the other side, we'll do 1, 2, and 3, just like I did the last time. And since this will be the last time going across, we'll just finish by going 2 more, right? To keep it consistent with that 5. So 1, 2, and that's 5 total. Flip to the other side. 4, 5. And it looks like I'll do just 1 more on each side. And that way, the banded portion, I'll do 2 actually. The banded portion has enough length that they'll actually meet together at the top. That's the goal here. So just like on the other side, which is 7 total, we'll do 6 and 7, and then fold them over towards each other. So it looks like that. And then from here, we're gonna take our 24 gauge wires. You can go ahead and use the pliers if you feel you need to. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes it's easier with the fingers, sometimes it's easier using the pliers. I think for this one, for the tight loops or the tight spaces, it's generally easier to use the pliers, in my opinion. You do you, whatever is more comfortable. And then so we got, with this, it was originally coming out with this wire. As you can see, it came out on this end. If you look a little closer, you can see it went underneath both of the 20 gauge wires, and then it goes back around over the top of both. And then we'll just flip it upside down. Actually, it's better that way. And then with the other 24 gauge wire, we're gonna do the same thing. Tuck it underneath. So that it comes out underneath both of the wires, and then from there, pull it tight, and then swing it around over the top of both. And let's just go ahead, since there is this gap right here, we'll just do it one more time. So underneath both. And if you'll notice, see how this wire kind of curves at the end tip? That actually makes it more difficult, so I do my best to straighten that out. And then tuck it underneath. See, it's already like curved and jagged. That's why I'm struggling to gently get it underneath both. And then grab that tip, pull it tight and around. All right, so then we've got it wrapped on this side. We've got it wrapped around twice, and then only once on this side, so I'll flip it around. And a little bit more length on this end to work with, so I'll just use my fingers and just kind of pinch it through underneath. Grab the pliers, pinch it, pull it tight, and then around the top. All right, so that's what it looks like there. And then from here, I don't really need all that wire. There are some designs I could do, some like spiral finishes with all that excess wire. But generally, I want to use the least amount of wire as possible. If you start to get fancy with all the copper work, then it kind of takes away from the natural beauty of the stone, especially with something as beautiful as a moonstone. When it catches the light just right, it gets this beautiful rainbow shimmer. And I don't really have the nice direct sunlight to catch that reflection, but I promise you, if I took this out into the sun, you could find there's like a rainbow shine to it. And if you cover that up with the copper, well, it's just covering up the natural beauty of the stone. And that is not the objective when creating a beautiful piece of art. So what I'm gonna do is just clip it kind of, what did I do last time? Like two digits on the finger, and clip it there, maybe a little bit less. And then that tip there, I'll pinch down on the flat part of the pliers and just twist to create a 90-degree kind of L shape or foot. And then from there, I'll pinch it between the fingers, not the flat part, and roll it around backwards around the finger, and that creates this perfectly circular loop, and it kind of looks like a capital Q almost. And what I'll do is just continue to roll, and I like to roll from the bottom. That way it maintains the maximum width of the finger. See how it's wider at the bottom than it is at the top. So I want to keep it as wide as possible. That way it has a big enough loop for, say, if I use like a leather lace or something to hang it from, I have enough room for that lace to go through. And then from here, I am gonna adjust that curly Q, it's not curly, but that Q tip. I will curl it inwards so it's not poking out, and then I'll actually do my best to kind of tuck it underneath so it's hidden and it's not really going to be poking out. And then from here, I'll finish with the 24 gauge wires. I'll just take the tips and just wrap them around that loop neck. Just until I run out of wire. And then then same thing with that Q-tip. You just want to make sure none of the wire is poking out. So you do your best to just curl the tips inward. Right, so now you have nothing really poking out. This one is poking out a little bit, but I'm not worried about it because with that last end of the 20 gauge wire, I'm just gonna massage the loop real quick just to, it's looking a little wonky, now it looks a little better. And then with that 20 gauge wire, I'm just gonna do the same thing as I did with the 24 gauge wires of just wrapping around and downward. I mean, you could go upwards if you want, but you just want to maintain consistency with whichever direction you're going, up or down or up. For this case, I'm using down. And then the reason is, if as soon as I cross it, if I'm going down and then I cross it back up, it starts to look kind of sloppy and creates these edges that you can feel. And the wearer will also notice, and it just doesn't look as nice. So with the end tip here, just the same thing, kind of curling the tip inwards and tucked underneath. All right, and then we are just about finished. So these 1, 2, and 3 wires are more or less symmetrical, just going straight across. And then 1, 2, 3, and actually all 4 of these are looking pretty good. It's just this bottom one here that I could easily bend out, and then you can see how there's a gap hanging out. And so what I'll do to tighten that is just take a pinch and just twist. And it actually creates this cool little double spiral swirl, and it's like a unique designer finish. And that's the end of that wrap. It's a wrap.